Hello and welcome back to Against the Storm Overexplained. Yes, friends, it's been a while since I've been making videos about this particular game, but the version 1.0 full release has come out on Steam. I'm really looking forward to getting back into this game, doing a bunch of tutorial videos. If you're interested in this game, go ahead and check the description where I will put a link. And I'm just going to go ahead and start by assuming that nobody who is watching this video has seen anything about this game or any of my other videos. This is Against the Storm. It is a rogue-lite city builder where you make towns, achieve objectives, and make upgrades that will make your life easier going forward as the challenges get more and more difficult. We're going to start with the tutorial. Let's go ahead and get going.
The world is plagued by the Blight Storm, a vile cycle of destruction ravaging everything in its path. The only safe haven is the smoldering city where the mysterious scorched queen reigns. You are one of her viceroys, a pioneer sent into the wilds, tasked with establishing new settlements and acquiring valuable resources for the crown. Your goal is to help rebuild the smoldering city and secure the future of the Queen's subjects.
So, first things first, very basic. WASD moves the camera around. You can also move around with the mouse. Neglecting your village will increase the queen's impatience and bring her wrath upon you, so that is your loss condition. If the queen's impatience gets all the way to the maximum, you'll have a very short amount of time to fix it, and if you don't, it will end the game. Or at least that particular run. Fulfilling your duties will increase the town's reputation, unlock new buildings, and eventually bring you to victory. So this is our win condition. Get this blue bar all the way up, and the settlement is a success. Now, choose a new blueprint, select the crown icon below. Each expedition starts with only a few essential blueprints. More will be given to you as you gain reputation points. Now, pick the woodcutter's camp. I don't have a whole lot of option. Press space to resume. Build a woodcutter's camp and explore the forest. You have to keep the fire going at all times. So I've got this hearth here, and it is burning various types of fuel. I have 10 pieces of wood, and that's all I've got. Oh, 20 pieces of coal as well. So we're going to do what it says. We're going to make a woodcutter's camp. We're going to set it down. And we're going to start exploring. Winning and losing. In Against the Storm, you build not one but many settlements. To successfully establish a town and therefore win a run, you need to collect enough reputation points, that's the blue, to fill the entire reputation bar. It's important to do this before the queen's impatience, that's the red, reaches its maximum. If the queen loses her patience, you will lose. You also lose if all of your villagers either leave or die, which is ominous. Now let's take a look at controls really quick. First off, menu, as usual. Secondly, we have this speed increase, which is attached to the 1, 2, and 3, and 4 buttons, right? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now this order here wants me to make 2 woodcutter camps and get 10 wood. So these orders are very important because they give you reputation, they give you access to more buildings, so you really want to try to prioritize getting these orders done as soon as possible. Now, when it comes to actually putting people into a camp to work it, each type of person, each species, has certain things they specialize on. For example, you'll see that the beaver here is specializes in chopping wood down. And when I put him into the camp, this worker has 10% chance of doubling their yield, and you can tell by this swirling thing here that that's what that is. So I'm going to put 2 more in there. We've got 3 beavers working here. They should start chopping down trees. And I can use these 2 icons here, these 2 axes, to mark trees for cut down, or to be cut down, or to unmark trees to be cut down. Another thing about the woodcutter's camp that's locked for now, you can choose whether to avoid opening new glades, to only cut down the trees that are marked, or to just cut down everything around you. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of make a path out to this area here. I'm going to make it a little bit thin. Whenever I'm cutting to a new glade, I usually have a row of 2 trees going in there, which for me seems like the most efficient way to make a path. However, we do need a second woodcutter camp, so we'll go ahead and put it over here. Okay, the camp is done and we've got enough wood, so we will go ahead and deliver this order. The order gives us 3 more beavers arriving. It also gives us a 35% increase in woodcutter production. Exploration. Although you're surrounded almost entirely by a thick forest, there are smaller and bigger glades around your starting location. To establish a successful settlement, you'll have to cut your way through them. Glades can contain resources, treasures, fertile soil, which is used for farms and stuff, ruined buildings, and more. Use the tree marking tool, the axe icons on the right-hand side of the lower central HUD, to point your woodcutters to specific areas of the forest that they should prioritize. The best rewards come from dangerous or forbidden glades marked with this skull icon, but these always have at least one dangerous glade event within them, which will require you to deliver certain goods or complete a challenge to complete them. And if you don't, there's usually some sort of negative consequence. Okay, so our next blueprint is going to be a shelter, which our minions can use to live and stay out of the rain. I use M to move around my camp, and I'm going to go ahead and put beavers in that one as well. You also have the ability to make this path. Doesn't cost any resources, just takes a little bit of time, and gives a 5% speed increase to villagers. So this is your primary, like, city design tool. 5% isn't a lot, but it can add up over the course of an entire run. So some buildings you can move around, some buildings you can't. Now I need to cut into 2 glades, but also I should probably make some shelter. And in fact, this might be a good time to talk about reputation and resolve. These numbers here are the resolve of each of these species. I want those numbers as high as possible. If they get too low, if they get negative, then they'll start to leave. Now, whenever I build the basic shelter, I like to pattern it very specifically. 1, 2, 3, 4. R rotates them, and then I build roads around them, although you don't need to. To be clear, you can put buildings, just smash them together against each other, and all of your workers will be able to access them. You do not need the roads or any space at all, but, you know, it makes it look pretty. And we're cutting into 2 glades, so let's go ahead and mark these trees here. There's one glade. And we have glade events. Glade events are objects found in the forest, like abandoned caches, survivor camps, ruins, wild beasts, etc. Some of them are positive, offering goods or new villagers in exchange for a small amount of resources. Others are dangerous, forcing you to act quickly to avoid negative consequences, while also giving you generous rewards should you complete them. Once you select a glade event, the event panel will appear. That's this right here. There, you'll be able to find a few different sections: effects, worker slots, requirements, and rewards. The effect section, which is up here, shows you the possible negative consequences of the event and how much time you have left before they occur. To complete an event, you need to assign workers to it. Choose one of the two options, if the event has more than one solution, and then select Investigate. Very often, events have more than one way of being solved. Most events offer two different approaches, with each approach having its own requirements, rewards, and so-called working effects. Working effects are special conditions that activate once you give the order to investigate an event, like a resolve penalty, a slow debuff, etc. Your goal is to survive these conditions for a set amount of time. After an event has been completed, your workers will deliver the rewards to your warehouse, and no negative effects will trigger. So, for example, we've got this herbalist camp here. We can assign workers to it, and we can either salvage it and gain some clay and some stone, or we can rebuild it, in which case we will have a usable herbalist camp, which I think we want to do. So we're going to choose rebuild, and we're going to assign 3 people. That means it's only going to take 20 seconds to get done. And we'll hit investigate. Now, speaking of the warehouse, all goods, you can see this lizard here has a little box of goods here. All goods come and go from the warehouse. Later on, you'll be able to make miniature warehouses elsewhere, so you don't have to walk so far. But every time these woodcutters chop down wood, they will fill up the camp. The camp has a certain amount of storage, and once they fill that up, they will stop chopping trees and deliver that wood to the main hub here. And that's important because it can really throw off your timing if you're trying to chop down trees quickly and your workers decide they're going to go back to the hub. So for example, you can see right now that these beavers are bringing wood and dropping it off from the camp into the warehouse. Anytime I open a new glade, I like to run a path to it. And we still need to get one more path going, or one more glade opened. Anytime you want to destroy a building, you can hit V or hit this button, and you can destroy it and get some materials back. So for example, if I didn't want this path for some reason, I would click on it, the path goes away. We have our second glade open, giving us some eggs and some roots. We're going to get 3 more people and some meat. And you'll notice when we completed that, we both gained some reputation and we lowered our impatience. That's why these orders are so important. Small forager camp. A small, crude version of a specialized camp. It's slower and can only gather from small nodes. It can collect grain, root, and vegetables. And the order wants me to gather vegetables. So we're going to go ahead and build that forager camp right next to this big vegetable patch. So as you can see, it requires certain buildings to access certain resources. And you can tell if you have that building or not by hovering over, and you see how it says gathered via Stonecutter's Camp? But since Stonecutter's Camp is brown, it means that I don't have the blueprint for that building. I can't build it yet. So this herbalist camp is good to go. We'll go ahead and put a couple of people in there to start gathering berries and mushrooms. And again, you can see that the human has a specialty in gathering vegetables. Humans are good at farming in this game, so anything that really involves farming is good for humans. Now, it wants me to mark trees, but I'm not really specifically going for anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and let them cut wherever they want to cut. We'll talk more about micromanaging woodcutters later on. And that gives me the vegetables that I need, so we're going to go ahead and finish that order, which will get us giant vegetables, which means every time we make vegetables, we get one more of them. These are an excellent kind of perk that can really, really help out. And then the next thing I need to do is make a stonecutter camp and produce clay from it. The game really wants me to mark some trees for harvest, so we're going to go ahead and do it. Just so it leaves me alone. Hey, what do you know? We get to pick up the stonecutter's camp. So now we can place that next to this clay and start harvesting that. And yes, if you really want to, you can move the stone or the woodworker camp closer to the trees as they go, which will make it a little bit faster for them to go back and forth from the tree to the camp. It's not a huge boost, and it depends on how much you want to micromanage, but it can definitely help. Okay, we have new orders done, and we have newcomers waiting, so we're going to do the newcomers first. Every so often, you're going to get more people coming into your camp. So I can either get 2 beavers and a human with some grain, or I can get a lizard and a human with some vegetables, some leather, and some stone. I think I'm going to take this one. And we're going to go ahead and finish this order. No problem. Logistics. Every building has its own internal storage, where the goods it produces or gathers are temporarily stored. When the internal storage reaches its limit, the goods in it will be transported to the main warehouse by a worker. While transporting, it's important to keep in mind that the villagers have a limited carry capacity, depending on their profession and their active perks. So, they might need to walk back and forth between their workplace and the main warehouse multiple times. Goods kept in a building's internal storage can also be accessed by workers from other production buildings as ingredients for recipes they're working on. So, for example, if I have one building a farm that's making grain, and I have a silo next to it making flour, it can go straight from the farm to the silo without having to go to the warehouse first. If 2 buildings are close enough and use each other's internal storage, an animated dotted line will be visible between them after selecting one of the buildings. Sometimes deliveries and production might stall for a while because of breaks. Every few minutes, workers will return to a nearby hearth to eat and rest. During a break, they'll consume at least 1 item of food, and they'll try to fulfill all of their needs, which we will talk about later. If a villager has multiple needs tied to complex food, they will consume more than 1 meal. So they take a break, and that's another thing you have to keep in mind if you're going for very precise timing. Every once in a while, your workers will take a break, as they should. We're going to go ahead and pick up the Harvester Camp, which allows us to gather plant fibers and reeds, which I assume we're going to need, yeah, because it wants us to find plant fiber. Well, fortunately, we've got some right here, so we'll go ahead and make the Harvester Camp right next to those flowers. Assign a couple of people to work it. And that should get us where we're going pretty quick. Now, that may have been a surprise, but there are cycles to the weather. There are 3 phases, which I assume we're going to read about later. The drizzle is kind of like spring, although it does still rain. The clearance is kind of like summer or autumn. It's the harvest season. And then there's the storm, which can really mess you up over time. One of the things that always happens with the storm is this looming darkness. You get -4 to global resolve for every level of hostility that you have. Again, we'll talk about hostility later, but right now, my hostility level is 0. You can see that I'm getting hostility because I have villagers, and for every hearth that I have, it actually lowers my hostility. Every 100 points of hostility will get me up to another level. Hostility is something you want to try to keep down wherever possible. We'll go ahead and deliver this. The next thing we want to do is probably make a crude workstation, because we're going to make what I call tier 2 goods. We'll talk about that in a sec. We're going to pick up the crude workstation blueprint and build one. There's the dotted lines that they were mentioning in the tooltip. And I always try to put my production buildings as close to the main warehouse as I can, so that deliveries take as short amount of time as possible. Another quick note, anytime you hover over a square, it will tell you what is in that square. So if I cut this tree down, I get some wood, I get potentially a 15% chance of some resin, possibly some plant fiber, maybe even some eggs. Now, let's talk a little bit about production. So these are our basic, what I call tier 2 materials: planks, fabric, and bricks. You can make planks out of wood, obviously. Fabric can be made out of plant fiber, leather, or reeds, and you get to choose. Do you want all 3? Do you want just 2? Do you want just 1? You have very fine control over what you want to use. Same deal here. You can use both clay and stone to make bricks. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a couple of people there. And they're going to start making these materials, which are going to be necessary to build more complex buildings later. We also get, every once in a while, a cornerstone, which is a benefit or a perk that will affect us for the rest of this run only. So for example, production is faster in the crude workstation, or I can gain 20 reeds and 20 clay every time I discover a glade. Since I'm currently working on making stuff in the crude workstation, I'm going to go ahead and choose carpenter tools. And as you can see, they're making bricks, they're making cloth, and then we can check the internal storage here as it fills up with the things that they make. When this hits full, they'll go ahead and deliver, or we can force the delivery at any time by clicking this button. So again, if you need the materials right now for some reason, then you can hit that deliver button and get them just a little bit faster. Now, everything else is locked for the moment, but you can also sort of prioritize which of these you want to make, and you'll be able to set a limit to how many of each you want to make. Just waiting on a couple more planks. Okay, our building blocks order is done, so we're going to go ahead and deliver that. And now it wants us to find a forbidden glade, change the resource from scrolls to fabric in the ancient shrine, so apparently we're going to find an ancient shrine in there, and then we want to deliver one ancient tablet, which is a valuable source of knowledge highly sought after by traders and the queen. They can only be found in dangerous and forbidden glades. We'll go ahead and get a couple more lizards and a beaver. And now we need to cut our way to a dangerous glade. There's one right here. And that's probably going to be the best one to go to. So we'll move you over here. Have you start cutting your way through. We get to choose a blueprint. Now, these houses are specially made for each of these species. And when you build them, it increases the resolve of those species because they're like, yes, we have a house that is specifically for us. I'm going to go ahead and grab the lizard house blueprint. And let's go ahead and make a couple of those just so you can see how it looks. Now watch the lizards resolve as these go up. Immediately jumps. Now a couple more numbers over here to the left. This number here tells you how many of each, or how many humans you have, how many beavers you have, how many lizards you have. This little icon here tells you how many do not currently have a job. And then how many of them don't have houses. Because if you don't have a house, then that's going to drop your resolve. So you want to try to keep everybody housed, and where possible, you want to house them in specific housing for them, because that will increase their resolve. I still have a few people without a home, so we're going to go ahead and build a couple more shelters. Now, when a camp no longer has anything next to it, you get a very helpful alert that tells you that you need to move it or get rid of it. So I'm going to move it over to this other source of fiber right there. Okay, we got into our dangerous glade. We did indeed find an ancient shrine, and we were supposed to change this from scrolls to cloth. So let's look at this. This is our first dangerous event. Let's look at it. In 35 seconds, it is going to kill 3 random villagers. Normally, this timer will be a lot higher. It's going to take 1.5 minutes to finish the threat. But you'll notice, as I assign more people, now it's only 1 minute. Now it's only 30 seconds. Even with that, we have to get the goods, the wood and the fabric, or the planks and the fabric, we have to get them to there first before that timer will start. So I suspect that we're going to end up losing 3 people, and there's nothing we can do about it. So let's keep an eye on that. As you can see, the people that we assigned are bringing the goods that they need out there. But now we've got 1 second left. Let's see what happens when the threat goes live. It sends out these horrible little spirits, which seek out my villagers and kill them. No! I also need to put someone here now. Oh, I'm out of people. It's fine. So 40 more seconds, and this threat will be eliminated. And in 5 minutes, if I don't get it eliminated, it will kill another 3 people. It says no builders. It says mark trees for harvest. And of course, people have died. Now they're going to bring that ancient tablet back to the warehouse. Now, something you may want to consider, you see how that lizard kind of took a crooked path? If you really want to maximize your efficiency, it's a good idea to lay down the paths that follow the paths they're already using, because the AI is set to take the fastest route possible. Now we've got our ancient tablet, we've got this order done. We're going to go ahead and deliver that, and that finishes up our very first tutorial village. It gives us 10 points of food stockpiles, which we're going to be able to use to upgrade later on. It gives us some experience points, which will allow us to access those upgrades. And we've unlocked all this content. We've unlocked the woodcutter camp, the small forager camp, the stonecutter camp, harvester, crude workstation, small hearth, which is a secondary hearth that you can build, a small warehouse, which is a secondary warehouse you can build, trading post, and farm fields. And that brings us to our second tutorial village, which we are going to go ahead and do in the next video. So I hope I will see you then. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.